Hello, you lovely lot. My name is T, and welcome to another episode of Looking at Literature. This episode is slightly different from my usual videos because I'm going to be giving a presentation as opposed to just talking. I gave this presentation as an assessment for my Drama and Witchcraft module, and I thought I would share it with you. It also includes references to plays, which makes it applicable to this series. So I'm going to be talking about some personal experiences with witchcraft, and what helped me to decide that I wanted to take this course in the first place. I'm also going to be looking at some modern witchcraft practices and representations of witches in the media, before going into a more detailed case study of the representation of witchcraft. All of this is to answer my question about why witchcraft is still such an interesting genre and such a popular alternative to religion. My mum actually used to practice elements of witchcraft, or as it's more commonly known in modern terms, paganism. We still have the pictured pagan symbol above our front door to keep out evil spirits, and we used to have dream catchers in our rooms, but with the feathers and the windows open. The cats would go mental, so we took them down. My mum also burns a lot of candles and different waxes to protect the house and bring good luck to my family. I myself have a wax burner and use it to bring good spirits and vibes to my room, but I don't consider myself a practicing witch or pagan. As well as this, we have 4 cats who, I suppose, could be considered our familiars. I'm not sure any of them are really naughty enough to be considered a devil incarnate though, except maybe Mittens. She's evil. The crystal is one of the most popular pagan practices and is used to answer basic questions about the future and help make decisions. I only briefly mention this because I found it interesting how this symbol has been incorporated into modern fashion and jewellery. I myself have a necklace which resembles a crystal, and I didn't even realise until I came into researching this subject. So there are loads of different types of modern witchcraft practices, but it's mainly used as a way of creating communities of outcasts as opposed to the actual practice of magic. One element in particular I found interesting was the fact that there are options to worship female-based deities, and this shows through plenty of pagan practices which promote female equality and empowerment. Neo-Paganism is the actual term for modern witchcraft, but it's more of an umbrella term for many different types of practices. The word pagan is derived from the Latin term, which means non-participant, and is loosely because of the fact that pagans are non-participants in the Christian religion. This stems from medieval era, when the term was assigned to the Vikings who invaded England. In modern terms, however, the most popular pagan subset within Western culture is Celtic Neo-Paganism. This is the worship of nature in their natural form. They include many practices within their theology, but as opposed to religion, there are no sacred texts and there is only a worship of nature as shown through shrines in natural places such as trees, fountains, and rocks. They create dances together as communities and sing songs of prayer and worship. As well as all this, they study their history and archaeology in order to gain a better understanding of where they come from and how they are all connected to one another and to nature. It is definitely about community and coming together. These new practices have influences on the media and their representation of witches. There are loads of TV shows and films which all show different types of witches. Once Upon a Time, one of my favourite TV shows, portrays the fairy tale witch in a redemptive storyline, making her a good guy. In Marvel, we have the Scarlet Witch, who is a witch portrayed as a superhero, although she is rejected from society because of her mistakes in the most recent installment, and that likens her to the character of Elizabeth Sawyer in The Witch of Edmonton. Both women struggle to find a place where they fit in their communities, and they feel isolated. In video games, the witch is more often portrayed as the bad guy, such as in Dead by Daylight, where the rule is explicitly not to wake the witch. Town of Salem is an interesting video game example, as it could be considered extremely insensitive given that it's based on real events and the deaths of many innocent people. But it's a really fun and cute game, and when can it really be considered too soon? This brings me on to my case study, which is American Horror Story, where their 3rd series is entirely dedicated to a coven of witches. But what's interesting about this is the fact that there are so many elements of witchcraft portrayed in the series as a whole, and not just those Western portrayals we're so used to seeing. This series is reminiscent of the late Lancashire witches, as it focuses on a coven of women who don't really intend any harm to the outside world, and are just using their powers for play as they attempt to understand them. The different types of witchcraft include Misty Day's obvious Celtic Neo-Paganism and her power through her connection with nature, Zoe's sexual power and female empowerment, Kyle's connection with death, Cordelia's herbs and potions. She is also the leader of the coven and can be considered the Hecate figure, as she protects the coven from harm and guides them. And finally, Madison. Originally, Madison has the power of telekinesis, but through her arrogance she attempts to take on more powers, and this results in her downfall. Not only are there conventional powers and practices of witchcraft, but dark magic and voodoo is shown through the character of Queenie, who describes herself as a human voodoo doll. She is portrayed as almost invincible and can inflict harm on anyone she chooses, a considerably dark power. Also, in the opposite coven of witches of black magic, we see practices of Satanism and further displays of dark voodoo. An interesting couple of characters to consider are those of Marie Laveau and Madame Lalaurie, both of whom are based on real women who lived in New Orleans. Marie Laveau was considered a real witch who would help women, especially with infants, but also placed curses on people. There is a tale of a doll she cursed that still haunts New Orleans, and the graveyard where she is buried is considered the most haunted in the world. As well as this, people draw crosses on her tomb in order to have a wish fulfilled. This all points to an idea that through the power of superstition, a connection from the past to the present can be created. And by portraying this character in a fictional sense, the show is creating interest for witchcraft and suggesting the reality of it. A final example of a witch in American Horror Story is Lady Gaga's character in the Roanoke series. This depiction of a witch is very different, as she is wild and grotesque. She is a depiction of a witch as pure evil or a devil in human form. She is a seductress and cannibalistic, initiating people to do her bidding and enter her coven by having them eat human hearts and perform sexual acts with her. She is considered the original Hecate, and, like witches depicted in the plays of the 17th century, she is a figure to be truly feared. So when we're considering why witchcraft is still such a popular topic, we have a lot to consider. A lot of media in the witchcraft genre is aimed at young adults and teenagers, and the witches conveyed are often struggling with their identities. Could it be that we can relate to them? Can it be that the figure of the witch can be so easily manipulated into anything we want her to be? Can it be the influence of the past on the fiction of the present? I believe that it's all of these. Witchcraft will always be interesting because it's scary and exciting and can always be something different. There's no black and white example of what a witch is, and no one can give a real answer because nobody really knows. I hope you enjoyed this video, as it's something a little bit different. Please leave a like if you found it interesting, or share with a friend if you think they will, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Until next time, cheerio.